Okay, so this is the answers to your statistics exam. So according to the Road Safety Authority, approximately 52% of candidates pass their driving test in Ireland each year. It is suspected that in one particular centre it's harder to pass the test than in others. An independent body decides to investigate if this is the case. In order to carry out a hypothesis test, a sample of people who were tested in the centre was surveyed. If 625 people were surveyed, calculate the margin of error of this survey. Give your answer as a percentage. So here I have written out the margin of error formula. You need to learn that, otherwise you can't do this question at all. I put in our sample size, n, and found it was 0.04. It asked for it as a percentage, so I multiplied it by 100, and then I added a percentage sign. So that's all there is to that question. Now, the survey revealed that 290 of those surveyed had passed their driving test. Use your answer to A, part 1 above, to create a 95% confidence interval. I've written this here out. Your 95% confidence interval. You need to learn that it's always your proportion. That's your sample proportion. Take away your error, and your sample proportion add the error. And then you can say that you're 95% confident that your sample, the true proportion, is inside your range. So you get most of the marks here for finding your sample proportion. Actually, is it by 4 or 5? Let me double check. 10 marks there would be 4 out of 10 for getting your sample proportion. That is just using this number up here over your total 625. And then, seeing as part 1 was written as a percentage, I'm going to write this one as a percentage as well. Then I put that into my calculator. I get 42.4, and I do the same for the other side. And then you can say, I'm 95% confident the true proportion is inside that interval. I'm 95% confident that the pass rate is between 42.4 and 50.4. And I have an alternative method of doing it here, where you do it in a bracket. Now, use your answer from part 2 to conduct a hypothesis test at the 5% level of significance. So 5% level of significance always matches up with your 95% confidence interval. To test the claim that it's harder to pass the driving test in this centre. So I had a wee tick above those. State your null hypothesis. You have to actually include that it's the proportion is equal to 52%. Where did I find 52%? Way up here. Sometimes it's not with the part that you need it. So approximately 52% of candidates pass their driving test each year. So that is nationally. And then you have to do your alternative so that the true proportion is not equal to 52%. And I have made a note here. When you fail to reject the null hypothesis, you're basically accepting it. You do that if the proportion is in the interval. And you reject it if you reject your null hypothesis if your proportion is outside it. So the next thing I've written here is that I'm rejecting it as it's outside my 95% confidence interval, rewrite your confidence interval. And then, so I've done the alternative hypothesis, I've given a conclusion, but it's not in the context of the question, so I need to do that now. I'm rejecting the null hypothesis, and I conclude that it's harder to pass the driving test in this centre because from our sample, it's between 42.4% and 50.4% pass rate in this centre, but nationally the pass rate's 52%, so it's harder, and that's important that you understand that. But you get most of your marks in this question. This part was worth 3 out of 5. You would get 3 out of 5 for having that, and the additional 2 marks is for the context of the question. You get 5 out of 5 if you add that as well. This is a note that you need to learn, and I will do the next part.